I'm Nikki Druce.
And I'm Cheryl.
And this is Killers, Cults and Queens,
the podcast where we journey to the spookiest, scariest, and downright weirdest corners of the world.
Today we'll be chatting to Stephen Volk, the mastermind behind one of the scariest pieces of TV history to ever exist, Ghostwatch.
It's now flats.
Yeah.
Oh, can you imagine? It must be haunted then, mustn't it be haunted by Ghostwatch?
Yeah.
1,000,000%.
It's hard to do it without music, and you've got to have real presenters. They just didn't get it.
But it was him.
I wish you hadn't told me that. I'm going to be freaked out.
It's going to inspire the next project.
Wrapped and ready to go.
You foiled my plan, Stephen.
Are you ready?
I was born ready, Nikki Druce.
Welcome to Killers, Cults and Queens. Now, today we have something a little different for you as we'll be chatting to a very special guest. But before we welcome them to the stage, how's your week been, our Shez? What you been up to?
Oh, do you know what, Nikki? I cannot stop thinking about the glory hole. It has been stuck in my mind all week long.
Oh, dearie me. And for anybody who may not have listened to our episode yet, what do you mean by this?
Well, for some reason, they called the cupboard under the stairs a glory hole. I'm like, look, guys, whatever floats your boat, whatever tickles your pickle, it's the cupboard under the stairs. Like, we don't need to be calling it the glory hole, for crying out loud. But hey,
No.
whatever went on in the 90s stays in the 90s, I guess.
That's very, very true. We know that this is a little bit different for us and something that we don't usually do on our main episodes, but we thought this was such a special guest that we really knew we were going to go over the time that we would normally have for a spooky sleepover. So why not bring you a full-length episode?
Exactly. And to get the brains behind the masterpiece that was Ghostwatch in our laps it is an opportunity we cannot turn down. And hey, we may be fast approaching the Christmas period, but the spooky season is 24/7, 365 on this podcast.
It really, really is.
But how are you, Nikki Druce? How has your week been?
I have been going back to the gym for the first time in a while. So my muscles are a bit sore, I'm a bit dehydrated, but I ran today for 10 minutes in a row, not even stopping. I did 10 minutes.
I am so proud of you. Look, couch to 5K could never.
And I'm amazed because I haven't run for a long time. 10 minutes was like the longest I could do beforehand when I was, relatively fit. I was slower than I would usually be, but I did half a mile in 10 minutes, which is an awful time, but that's all I can manage at the moment. I'm starting from somewhere.
At the end of the day, you are grabbing the bull by the horns, and quite frankly, you're doing more than most people sitting on a sofa, aka me.
And I got chatted up in the gym today, which is interesting if you saw my gym outfit. That's the thing. Once you're married, they all come out of the woodwork, don't they?
Yeah, to quote a wise prophet, Katy Perry, the one that got away. You are the one that got away.
I am. So, yes, I did lots of waving of my wedding ring around whilst I was doing my weights, whilst this guy was just talking at me and I wasn't paying any attention. And, I like your tattoos. Yeah, I bet you do. Oh, any plans
Big fan
to
of
get
War
any
of the
more?
Worlds.
Yeah, exactly. It's when they generically say, I like your tattoos. I'm like, not a specific one? No? Okay.
They don't want to seem like they're appearing to stare at one specific area.
Yes, so that has been my week. I have been trying my best to get back into it. I'm not going to say that it's going to last forever, but you got to start somewhere, haven't you?
Here's the New Year's resolution 2 months early. You smashed it.
Thank you very much.
Now, we cannot wait to chat to our guests this week, but before we do, allow us to introduce them.
Now, we know Stephen is the brains behind the topic of our last episode, Ghostwatch, but you'll definitely be familiar with some of his other work, even if you hadn't realised it. He is the creator of Afterlife, the ITV series starring Andrew Lincoln and Leslie Sharp. He wrote the screenplay for the film Gothic, directed by Ken Russell, The Guardian, directed by William Friedkin, and mini-series Midwinter of the Spirit, which may just rival Ghostwatch in its unsettling unsettling tone. Alongside his film and TV work, Stephen has written several books, short titles, and plays, including the Dark Masters trilogy with its titles Whitstable and Leytonstone, and his most recent work, The Confirmed Bachelors, which came out in 2025.
So, without further ado, please welcome to Killers, Colts and Queens, the icon, the legend. It's Stephen Volk, everybody. Studio
Thank
applause.
you.
Studio applause.
Yay!
I'll be fine as long as there's not anything spooky lurking in the technology.
Well, we never know with you, do we?
That sounds as if I bring it with me, which I try not to. Right.
Now, we covered Ghostwatch on our last episode. We are inundated with comments from our listeners on how people love the show, how fond people are of it. So we want to know how you feel with people still being captivated by it 30 years on.
Well, it's completely amazing when you consider it's 33 years ago that it actually was transmitted. We can't quite believe it. I'm still in contact with the director and the producer. We're just amazed. I mean, it's all we could ever want to be remembered that far after the transmission date, because you have to remember it's not a long-running series of 3 or 4 seasons of something. It was on once for an hour and a half, and for people to remember that hour and a half so long after it went out. And the really curious, mystifying thing about the whole phenomenon in a way was people couldn't record it. They couldn't watch it back. It was entirely about word of mouth. Did you see that? Did you see the ending? Did you miss the beginning? What did you think when you saw that? Oh, I didn't see it, but can we get a copy of it? Can we buy a black market copy of it? So it was like that for 10 years. People really under the radar trying to get hold of a copy and gossiping about it. And so it was kind of an illicit fan club in a way under the surface until the BFI brought it out on DVD. And then people could watch it in its entirety and watch the ending and see who made it. And there were extras on it. And for the first time, me and Leslie and Ruth got a chance to talk about why we'd done it, which was very important to us all along. We hadn't had the chance to do that. So it's almost literally a found footage thing because it was buried. It was buried like something you put in a box and you dig a hole and stick it in it. And then it's like a time capsule that 10 years later, people then dug up and discovered or rediscovered. And it already had a kind of weird mythology attached to it because people misremembered what had happened and that kind of thing, all of which I think is really kind of fascinating and interesting and adds to it all, really. But for it to go from the night when it happened to being, you're never supposed to talk about this ever again for 10 years, it's kind of like, let's pretend it never happened. And then we discovered that behind all the kind of anger that came out when it was first transmitted, there were all these people and, dare I say, kids, really, or people usually around 12, 13, that kind of age, quietly really loved it at the time and didn't really get a chance to express that they were fans of it. There was just so much outrage and anger from adults. After that 10-year anniversary, then people with the internet started discovering it, and we realized that there was a whole subculture of people that secretly loved it all along, So that was an incredible feeling to find this society of people out there that remembered something that we thought nobody other than people that got very angry had taken much notice of,
Oh, for sure. And I love this concept of the brown envelope being passed through back doors with a VHS of Ghostwatch for everybody to watch.
Absolutely, yeah.
The secret society. Just to find it. But you mentioned 2 of your co-workers, Leslie Manning, who directed it, and Ruth Baumgarten, who was one of the lead producers.
Yeah.
Now, this production was a very heavy female-led production, which we obviously love to see in this industry. How do you feel that helped sell the story of Ghostwatch?
Well, the BBC, in the days when Ghostwatch was pitched and developed, there was a head of drama who had, let's say, between 10 and 20 individual producers under them who really had a free rein to commission the things that they wanted. But basically, they appointed these 10 producers to make things and have an instinct about what they wanted to put on. Each producer had a certain number of slots, so they could kind of do what they wanted. Incredible freedom compared to what you have to do now in terms of going through the hoops. Everything is micromanaged at every stage. But in those days, I could pitch to Ruth an idea for a show, and she could take it to the head of drama. They'd say, yeah, okay, let's see how that develops. And then she could commission a script based on that. It was very simple. So I was just pleased that Ruth would have faith to let me play with the kind of ideas I was interested in, really. Ruth was a very go-ahead kind of producer at the BBC. She'd done other things that were really outstanding. And she'd also worked with Leslie before. So once she and I had a script that was getting somewhere, we brought in Leslie as someone that was quite a cool head to try and figure out how the hell to do it. I think that was part of it. And Leslie has a wonderful ability to be completely ego-free and practical about, okay, this is the proposition. And she's not one of these directors, many of whom I've met, who says, I don't quite understand your concept, so I'm going to change it until it's something I do understand. She got it from the beginning, and it was all about how do we realize this in a practical way that makes it effective, both creatively and in terms of just achieving what was there, which was really very strange because it wasn't the kind of animal that the drama department was used to creating. And our lovely executive producer, Richard Brooke, he didn't really understand why we wanted to shoot it on video, why we wanted it to look like kind of light entertainment, why we wanted not to have proper actors in it, why we wanted to have no music. He was like, right, you've got to have music. If it's a horror thing, you've got to have music. And we said, no, you've got to do it without... You've got to do it without music, and you've got to have real presenters. They just didn't get it. And Richard was quite funny in the documentary that we made later because he laughed quite a lot about the degree to which he didn't really understand what we were trying to pull off in the way that we did. It kind of had to be all those things, but it was a struggle to convince them of the modus operandi of what we wanted to get across. Richard had just produced very famous Screen One film called Tumbledown with Colin Firth, about a Falklands veteran that was hospitalized, and that was a very straightforward drama that was shot on film, proper actors, and that kind of thing. So going from that to something that was so kind of off the wall and anarchic was quite difficult for him to get his head around.
And you mentioned that it's, anarchic and something quite different, but it ended up looking quite different from your original screenplay, didn't it? Because you wanted it to be a 6-part drama and then ending in the live show. Was that always the original plan?
I usually get it wrong because I think it was worked out as 5 episodes, and it was a kind of conventional thriller structure. A little bit like you'd imagine a Quatermass serial or something. How it started was there was a show called Edge of Darkness with Bob Peck, and it was a kind of a thriller, kind of detective type thriller thing. And it was very successful. It was 4 or 5 episodes, serial, as we used to call them. And my agent said, why don't you go to the BBC and pitch them something supernatural that'll be like a conventional drama series, but a supernatural one. And that's how I met up with Ruth and developed this idea that was actually called Ghostwatch, and it was about a kind of parapsychologist who gets involved with an investigative team of reporters. There was a show called World in Action that used to be a kind of foot in the door journalism investigations, So the idea then was this film crew gets involved with a ghost hunter. That was the concept. But the BBC wouldn't want to commit to a series. So I had the final episode, which was supposed to be a live transmission from a haunted house. And I remember sitting in the room in Broadcasting House, that big building, that circular building that's not owned by the BBC anymore.
It's now flats.
Yeah.
Oh, can you imagine? It must be haunted then, wasn't it? It must be haunted by Ghostwatch.
Yeah.
1,000,000%.
So I just remember that time when I said, well, I can't shoehorn all the 5 hours into an hour and a half. It's too much plot. But could we do the last bit and sort of treat the rest of the story as kind of backstory? So we just meet the family meet the family, and everything else has happened before we join them. We kind of all did it on that basis. I mean, that was Leslie, I think, was on board with that discussion as well, because there was a phase that we went through where we were going to have like a telethon kind of Red Nose Day type of thing that was happening all over the country on Halloween, and we'd have all these reporters all over the country, and then something would go wrong in one of the locations, and then they'd say, well, we're not going to go back to Nottingham, we're going to go to King's Lynn, where there's this really awful stuff happening. And Ruth just said to me, that's going to take like 25 minutes to get to that point. Let's just say this is the most haunted house in England. We're going there. So that's when you have a good producer. So that's what we did. We invented this one family.
I want to know what happened in King's Lynn.
Oh, well, yeah, wouldn't it be weird if something did happen? God.
Part 2. You can do it. You can do it, Stephen. Write it.
But before we scare ourselves even more, I think it's time for a coffee break. Now, I'm not going to lie, when Nikki suggested giving London Nootropics coffee a try, I was skeptical, but just over a month into my journey with this stuff, and to quote the GC, I love it. Now, you know I'm a busy girl on the go, and since starting drinking a cup of this every day, I really feel the pep in my step. I truly love all their blends, Mojo, Flow, and Zen, as they give me everything I need in my day. But I particularly love their newest product, Mush Love. They created it with the fantastic fungi people who made that incredible Netflix doc about the power of mushrooms. Mush Love has so many high quality mushroom extracts packed into it. It has become my favorite start to the day. With chaga, cordyceps, and lion's mane, it's got all the heavy hitters in there, and let me tell you, these do incredible things. Chaga is great for the immune system, so it's worth getting on before the cold season hits. Cordyceps are great for the heart health and managing stress, and lion's mane is a brain booster, which will obviously have you firing on all cylinders. So if you want to find your balance and join me in harnessing the power of mushrooms on the daily, make sure you head to londonnootropics.com and use the discount code KILLERS, that's KILLERS, for 20% off your order. Now, you know I just want the best for all of you, so give it a go and let me know how you get on. Right, let's get back to Ghostwatch.
So I think that's the wonderful thing about where you start from with Ghostwatch, is that, as you said, everything has already happened to this family. There's been a whole set of paranormal activity leading up to Ghostwatch kicking off. And the thing that it made me think about is the War of the Worlds broadcast, and we've covered that before on Killers.
Of course you have, yeah.
Nikki's a big fan.
I'm a very big fan. I have a tattoo and everything. So were you drawing from things like that?
Definitely. I think when I pitched it, I think I must have mentioned War of the Worlds. But I almost didn't need to say it to Ruth, because as soon as I said, let's do it as if it's live on Halloween, and it's kind of like this look came across her face, and I didn't need to say anymore. She immediately knew all the subtext, all the drama, and, make a ghost story for Halloween. It all occurred to her in that instant, so I didn't have to over-explain it, which was great. But the challenge that I found structurally about writing the story was I felt very strongly that if it was going to work as something that pretended to be a live broadcast, then you can't have things happening from the beginning, because that would be just too unlikely. And Leslie and I were trying to think what you would do if you were a producer of an actual light entertainment program rather than a drama. So what would you have done if you were a light entertainment producer? You would have made sure that you had stuff to do while nothing happened. Okay, so that's why you'd have the phone-ins. That's why you'd have the little bits of film that will describe the backstory, so you could fill in the fact that nothing was actually going to happen that night. And for the first 45 minutes, nothing did happen. And it also, I think, subliminally told the audience that the program makers thought nothing was going to happen, because they had all these things lined up to pad it out. because nothing was going to happen. So it was a kind of all about a false sense of security. But what I was trying to do slyly as I was doing that is set up all the ideas that were going to pay off in the second half, all the little bits of technology that would go wrong, all the things about the night vision camera, all those kind of things that were going to be used once the shit hits the fan and all bets are off. And you wouldn't have time to explain all that stuff. So we had to literally do all the exposition in the first half so that we can hit the ground running in the second half. So it was kind of unlearning all the rules of conventional screenwriting, because I had to write it like light entertainment, like it was, an interview on Parkinson or that kind of thing. Actually, Parkinson more or less rewrote his lines. He actually said to us, "Do you mind if I say them in my way?" And I was like completely on board with that, because look, how many interviews has he's done hundreds of interviews with people. He knows how to conduct interviews and to chat to people on camera. I don't, so I'll give a suggestion of what the content is, but if he says it in the way that he thinks he would, if this was really happening, that was brilliant,
I mean, the best projects come from collaboration, don't they? But
Yeah.
you spoke about all these fabulous scenes, and one, in our opinion, is the best, is the coffee making scene. It really just brings the whole of Ghostwatch together, and it seems so real. But did you really think that the people would believe this is a live broadcast? And did you ever expect the backlash that it received?
I always give the same answer to that, but I honestly thought that people would be very attuned to what was drama, and they might begin, because it's Michael Parkinson and all the other people they recognize, they might begin for maybe 10 or 15 minutes to think it's a genuine program. But even if we did it well, I thought it would dawn on them within the first half hour at least that this was a contrivance, because you always write for yourself. And I thought, how would I react? I would twig that this is Halloween night, and I see they're doing that. And then I'd think, oh, that's clever. And then I'd enjoy it for the drama that it was. That's what I thought would happen. But a whole span of things happened. We had a builder working for us, and he said, oh yeah, I watched that. I knew within a minute it wasn't true. And yet, on the other hand, I had a friend that we saw in London a week before, and I said to her, I've got a drama on TV next Saturday night. It'd be nice if you could see it. Anyway, I spoke to her after the transmission, and she said, yes, I remember you saying that, but when I saw Michael Parkinson, I thought you might have got it wrong. So I told her, for sure I told her, and yet it's almost like when she started watching, it kind of overrode what I told her. And I think that's what happened a lot of the time was, even though it's a completely outlandish, preposterous, impossible story, the way it looks is convincing. One of the most perplexing things I find is when I talk to an audience and show it in universities or film clubs, as we've done since 2002, when it was back legitimate, so to speak. The audiences always laugh at the beginning. They laugh at the beginning, and they laugh at the introduction of Parkinson, all the rest of it. But halfway through, they go really quiet.
Yeah.
And then they remain quiet, and then they absolutely love it at the end. And it's kind of like when you've watched it on the big screen, it's pretending to be a TV program. You know it was made 30 years ago. And yet the watching of it, the actual visual look of it, I think bypasses your critical faculties and convinces you that something else is going on. It's a kind of conjuring trick in a way that works on people, which I'm glad to say that most people nowadays anyway enjoy.
Yeah, it really sticks with people, and I think it's the atmosphere that you've managed to create, and it's just fantastic. It really is, and it still sticks with people all these years later. But the thing that I noticed in some of the imagery that was used was very much relating to the case of the Enfield haunting. And I also noticed that in the credits, Guy Lyon Playfair's name was in there as the paranormal consultant. So just
That's
how
right,
much
yeah.
did you borrow from the Enfield haunting?
Well, I knew about it, obviously. I think it has more resemblance to it than I intended when I wrote it. I mean, to begin with, it's kind of accidental that it became a London location. I kind of wanted it to be
Yeah.
Manchester or something. And as soon as it was London, it was comparable to Enfield. because of the two girls. And the father that was kind of an absent figure. So it has a resemblance to it. But I remember at the time when I was writing it, I was reading up on all sorts of poltergeist stories, and I was sort of making a composite, in a way, of all those things that go together. I think the thing that possibly was something that was directly from Enfield was the kid being found to fake it. That I thought that was maybe an Enfield moment where they discover her banging on the pipes. But that was such a dramatic moment. I didn't really want to not have that, because that really wrong foots the audience into thinking this isn't what they thought it was. You know what I mean? But I didn't consciously make it like Enfield. I think the unfortunate thing that happened was that the production designer made the bedrooms very like the bedrooms with the pop star photos and that kind of thing. I think it was Starsky and Hutch, wasn't it, in the Enfield photographs that I know I remember so well. Now, to answer your question directly, my connection with Guy Playfair was I'd actually asked for his advice on a completely different film I was writing about a poltergeist case, and he was very generous with his help on it. And though I couldn't tell him what this project was, because Ruth swore me to secrecy, don't tell anyone what this is, because if it gets out, we're finished. So I couldn't tell him exactly what it was, but I said it was a poltergeist case, and could he come in and talk to the cast about what it was like to be in that house? I thought it would be useful for them to know firsthand what it felt like to be in a house with these weird things happening. That was the reason I got him in. So that's how come he had a role in the production. He wasn't very pleased with it.
Really?
Yeah. Well, a lot of his compadres in the Society for Psychical Research sort of said, why did you get involved in that? And he didn't get paid very much. So they said you shouldn't have done it. So he felt a bit of a mug on both counts, I think, really. That's my reading of the situation. Other people might read the situation differently. I was really saddened that he couldn't see what we were trying to do as a piece of entertainment. A lot of people that were in the psychical research world were quite angry about it, because they thought we weren't serious about the parapsychology. In fact, I don't think anyone is more serious about parapsychology in writing than I am. I mean, I was a member of the SPR for several years, and I met a lot of people, and I put a lot of work into meeting particularly female investigators to ask what it was like in the world of parapsychology, for them to get their ideas across. And that's where that character came from. And I wanted that character to be as genuine and convincing as I could make her, really. But all that effort kind of fell on deaf ears to a certain extent, which is a bit of a shame. It's a bit of a shame. I mean, having said that, I have met individual people from that community, and I can think of 2 or 3 or 4 off the top of my head, but I won't mention them by name, who do love the show and get where it's coming from, and had fun with it as a TV ghost story. So I can't complain about the whole lot.
Well, they say there could be 100 people in a room and 99 don't believe in you, and it just takes that one parapsychological person to believe.
Yeah. Have you ever had a paranormal experience, either of you?
Got a whole evening for all of Nikki's stories.
Yeah, all right.
Just a few. I used to live in a house that I feel, had a little ghost boy living in it, but I don't think he necessarily knew that he was no longer with us. And something awful happened to him, in the fact that he turned up on my landing above my bathroom where I was brushing my teeth one evening, and I looked in the mirror and I saw behind me a half of a very decomposed little boy crawling along the landing, and he disappeared into the wall. So I think that he didn't know he was dead. And I would come home from work and all of my cupboards would be open, but it was only the ones that were on the lower level in the kitchen. So nothing that was ever up on the tops. It was always the lower cupboards, which makes me think that it was him.
I wish you hadn't told me that. I'm going to be freaked out now.
It's going to inspire the next project.
Yeah.
I lived there lived there for 6 months, and I was very pleased to leave in the end. And I didn't tell a single soul whilst I was living there that this was going on, because I didn't want to make it worse. And I felt that if I started talking about it, he might pick up on that energy and might realise that he's no longer with us. So I thought, if that happens and these are the things that are happening and he doesn't know that he's here, what is going to happen if he realizes that he's dead? And so I never spoke about it. And yeah, it was only afterwards when we literally returned the keys and I said to my partner, my now husband, that I was experiencing all of these things. And he was like, oh, wow. And he never experienced anything there. You know, he didn't stay a lot in that house.
What point did you tell him when you were leaving the house? When we
left
moved?
The house, so yeah, so we moved out of there.
Would he have freaked out if you had told him earlier?
I don't think he would have freaked out as such, but he also has only ever seen one ghost, but the ghost that he saw was the ghost of a little girl. So I feel like if I told him that there's a ghost of a little boy, that would be too similar to his ghost story and far too scary.
Wow.
Quite the pair, them two. Jack and Jill went up the hill, decapitated.
Seeing child ghosts everywhere.
The only paranormal thing that's ever happened in this house, that's 1692 this house was built.
Crikey.
Never got any weird experiences here at all. It's got a nice feel to it. We used to find spoons up in the top bedroom, 3 floors, and we never ever take drinks up to the top floor or food up to the top floor. And yet spoons were appearing up there, and we couldn't work out why this was. And then we realized we had a cat, and sometimes we left the spoon in the cat food, and the magnet around the neck of the cat picked up the spoon. And it's absolutely true. I'm not making it up, but that's the explanation.
I believe you. I believe you.
There are sometimes natural.
Very logical.
It was weird at the time.
Well, we are fast approaching the end of our time with you, Stephen. But do you feel in today's climate that something like Ghostwatch could happen again? I mean, we live in the day and age of social media with instant replies, instant responses, and so many people are being fooled by artificial intelligence. Do you think a show like Ghostwatch could exist in 2025?
I think the world is full of fake news, as Donald Trump reminds us every day, including today. It's all fake news. Everything on the BBC is fake. I think he said literally today that the BBC is 100% fake news. What could be more topical for talking about Ghostwatch than Trump or one of Trump's friends literally saying that the BBC is 100% fake news? I mean, that was kind of the warning that I wanted to put out in 1992 as a kind of subtext of a ghost story for Christmas was, be careful what you believe, be careful what you trust on TV. Is that expert really an expert? Is that person telling you, are they qualified to tell you what they're telling you? And also, finally, do you believe your eyes? Do you believe what's in front of your eyes, or is it being manipulated? It seems all too obvious today, but it kind of wasn't an obvious message back then. I mean, the thing that was coming down the line, of course, was reality TV. And I think one of the things I wanted as well in Ghostwatch was the idea that the audience is kind of complicit in how the program finishes. So, like all horror stories, it's about be careful what you wish for. So the audience is wishing to see a ghost, aren't they? That's what they're told they want to see at the beginning. That's what they've tuned in for. And, the shit hits the fan, and that's the price you pay for wanting it, So it conforms to the idea of a really basic kind of horror idea. Be careful what you wish for. But it's also trying to say something about the media and how we live vicariously through the torment that others are going through on screen. If you think of Big Brother and that kind of thing, or the kind of voyeuristic nature of TV where we're quite happy to see someone traumatized. We don't feel responsible for it. Someone else is responsible for it. To us, it's entertainment. So that was the kind of foothills for those kind of ideas in the early 90s. But I think it's almost become all those things, all those ideas are really accepted now about TV. That's the nature of TV now. But as for doing it now, I think you couldn't really do it now. Everyone would immediately be spilling the beans about what's going on. But people do say to me, could we do it again? Could we do it again? And I say, look, don't ask me to do it again. I did that one. I'm not going to do another one, but I am ready for somebody else to do something I don't expect. And they will think of something I couldn't think of. That's the way I think of it. So I'm ready and waiting for the person of the present generation to come up with something that I don't expect, which hopefully will be something exciting and anarchic and unforgettable.
Yeah, be careful what you wish for, because you'll be top and tailing with pipes at the end of your bed.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So we know that Ghostwatch is only a tiny part of your career, Stephen, and you've worked on so many amazing things as a writer. So which project have you loved working on the most? And is there a project out there that you'd love to make, but you haven't yet?
Oh, my God. I was literally thinking today of all the things I've done in the last 30 years, which haven't been produced, of which there are many. I think probably only one in 10, 1 in 20 things ever reaches the screens. There are literally dozens and dozens and dozens of things that I could talk about for hours and hours that haven't happened. And it's not for any tangible reason. It's just that they don't slot into place, or they're not what people want, I've got a few kind of favorites. There's another parapsychology story that I'm trying to do with the director, Leslie, which we've been trying to get off the ground for several years, maybe 20 years. You'd never give up in this business. You can't afford to give up. So that's something I'd really want to happen. But yeah, I mean, I'm very proud of Ghostwatch. I'm proud of Afterlife, the show that I did for ITV, and that was a very good experience with Andrew Lincoln and Leslie Sharp. They were wonderful actors, and it was a great working on a show where you could see what the actors are doing and then write to their strengths and develop the characters with them over a period of time, over like 2 years that we were making it. That was a special kind of experience and also on an ongoing basis, see how the audience is kind of reacting to how the story is developing. That was great fun. So I'm very proud of that.
And can you tell us what you've got coming up, and is there anything that you'd like to plug?
If anyone's interested in a ghost story for Christmas, I've written a story called The Confirmed Bachelors, and it's coming out as a little book, chapbook. The publisher is called Black Shuck Books, and it'll be coming up. I think it's published towards the end of November, so it's definitely in time for someone to buy in time for Christmas. It's a small little book. It's a stocking filler, really, with 2 short stories in it. But I think it's ideal Christmas reading or listening if you get someone to read it to you.
Well, you shouldn't have told Nikki that, because I've already got that for her stocking filling.
Wrapped and ready to go.
You foiled my plan, Stephen.
Just don't go back to that house with the little boy.
Yeah, it's all right.
Absolutely
You're
not.
okay. The original owners moved back in, so it's up to them now. They've got to deal with him.
Well, safe and sound. Well, thank
Good.
you so much for joining us, Stephen. It has been an absolute honour to spend this time with
My
you.
pleasure. My
hear
pleasure.
your thoughts, know the stories, and on the behalf of millions of people you scared shitless over the years, we thank you for your services to television. And I think
much.
you've earned a well-deserved coffee at 10 p.m. at night.
Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. Great to talk to you both.
Thank you so much, Stephen. It's been
Bye.
a pleasure.
Nikki, wasn't that fabulous?
That was
I
so
love him.
fabulous. I love him so much. I feel like I could cry. That was so brilliant.
Well, it's not very often we get to get behind the brains of the person that created something that we have spoken about, really.
I know. It's so good to get that behind the scenes gossip, isn't it? And to find out exactly what was going on in his brain when it came to making things like that. And I was so pleased to find out that War of the Worlds was on his list, because I could tell it. I can smell it from a mile off.
Hey, it's literally in your DNA. That ink has been pressed into you so far deep that War of the Worlds is sub-level now.
Yeah, 1,000,000%. But I feel like that really added a nice element of depth to our episode, and I'm just so pleased that we got to ask Stephen some of those taxing questions, and now we know all about Ghostwatch inside and out.
I know. I didn't want to tell him that I was born the year after Ghostwatch came out, though.
I'm sure he probably guessed. You're all right.
So I look youthful.
You do! A beautiful young lady. Coming up next time on Killers, Cults and Queens.
We'll be boarding the bus trip from hell and learning all about the gruesome Greyhound bus murder. So make sure you join us this time next week to find out exactly what happened.
If you've made it this far, thank you for listening. That's all for this episode, and we'll be back next Monday with a brand new case.
We want to hear from you. We'll be discussing your thoughts and theories on this Friday's Spooky Sleepover bonus show. So if you want to get in touch, pop us an email at killerscultsqueens@gmail.com.
Or DM us at Killers Cults Queens on Instagram, leave us a comment on Spotify or YouTube, or send us a message on Patreon because we want to know exactly what you think. And whilst you're there, don't forget to leave us a 5-star rating and review. It really helps more than you think. If you've been affected by any of the themes in this episode, please have a look at the description for lots of helpful resources.
Remember, you can view our full-length video episodes on YouTube and join our exclusive community over on Patreon at patreon.com/KillersCultsQueens for early and ad-free episodes and plenty of other shenanigans coming your way. We'll see you there.
See you next time, and don't be a killer or join a cult.
Just be a queen. Goodbye.
Take a trip to the glory hole. Goodbye.